Good morning. Welcome to the Good Life meditation for today. Let's go ahead and open up the shield. The Good Life is my daily affirmation of objectives and principles. I do this every day to remind myself of the things that guide and keep me on course through life, and the values that I'm striving to. Well, the values that give meaning to my life and help me form objectives, form goals that make life a worthwhile activity. Some people might find living itself to be worthwhile enough, or abiding the mandates that are provided with them by default in their culture. Default mandates of, for example, education, finding someone to spend your life with, having and raising children, and the cultivation and sustenance of a career, that these may be satisfactory alone. Now, for them, this exercise may seem superfluous. They might say, well, there's meaning enough. Or, look at the beautiful fog over there. Or they may find that meaning in the religion that they were raised with, in which case they'll also look at what I'm doing as, again, superfluous. Why are you bothering working up all these extra objectives and principles when our culture is front-loaded with so many useful ones? And again, to them I may not have much to say. This message is really for those who find that those patent answers are either insufficient or unsubstantiated. And for me, it's mainly the latter, unsubstantiated. Most of the patent answers that I've been offered in my society and in my not really my second society, but the society of my wife, Japan, are likewise they're unable to stand on their own 2 feet. The suggestions of religion and cultural norms. I demand more from them than the fact that their precedents and their allegiance by the many. So I developed my own. Yeah, it's extra work, but otherwise I couldn't really get behind that leader. The leadership is not really a leader. I couldn't get behind that banner, that flag, the flag of the tried and well, it's not even the tried and true. Why do I keep straining for these patent descriptions? I can't get behind the banner of what is accepted. It's like almost mass-produced, consumer-grade life meaning. So I came up with my own meaning. Here they are, my 6 objectives. First is to wake every day and make that day a good day to die. To try to complete to get my household in order, my finances, my economic situation, my relationships with my loved ones in order, and my artistic efforts in order. I think I've got the last 2 in pretty good shape. My relationships and my artistic effort. And artistic, of course, being a very first world ambition, and being someone that has the luxury to pursue something artistic. So I think I have that in good shape. The one that it's been a constant struggle for me is the financial thing. Now, I'm in good shape right now, but I'm vulnerable if something were to go wrong. And my retirement is going to be quite dependent upon a pension and Social Security and 401k. But you know what? Most of us are, right? But I could have done better. So, I think I'm ready to die, especially given that I have good, healthy life insurance plans, and my wife and daughter will be well taken care of. But he's going awful fast on a little bike. Next is The objective number 2 is the cultivation of, the good and effective use of time. To not waste my time. I like to say that there's so much interesting, creative, I'm going to make sure this guy's not coming over, so many interesting and creative things to do with my time. Why would I want to just pass it away on things that are not very challenging? Now, of course, there is such a thing as leisure, which in case you may not want to be exercising creative effort or learning something new, and that's fine. So, I recognize when the leisure time comes and allow myself that. But for the most part, I want to be making good use of my time. And that includes my time at work. 3. The cultivation of good emotional reactions. I think we're going to break through the clouds here in just a moment and have a beautiful, beautiful sunrise. I'm hoping that's what that light ahead of it is, and not fire trucks, which I've seen to be the case in the past. I think it is we're going to have a beautiful cloud burst, or not cloud burst, but burst through the clouds to sunrise. So good cultivation of good emotional reactions, just to react well to the circumstance of life, to not fly off the handle, be in control of my emotions. Number 4 is make good use of time. This is number 5. Number 4 or 5 is do good things. Just good things throughout the day. Make my life my day a string of worthwhile activities. Never miss a chance to make the world better. And I do define what better is a little later when I talk about purpose. And number 6 is that guy passes me every day. Number 6 is the recognition of true limits and true opportunities. To understand what my real capabilities are and what my limits are, so that I don't waste my time extending myself into areas that I'm not likely to be able to achieve. It's not likely that I'm going to become an Olympic gymnast at this point in my life, but it is quite likely that I could go see the Olympics. Okay, let's get on down to my 20 principles. The first is the principle of war. Wake each morning going to war with everything that I hold dear. And I also go to war with everything you hold dear. But first and foremost, my own principles. Because it's not worth holding on to something that can't sustain on its own rate, just because it gives me comfort. I would rather go cold and lonely and silent and shivering in the cold without anything to warm me than to be warmed by unwholesome conceptions of truth. 2. Reason. Reason is the instrument of that war. There's 2 sub-principles of reason: honesty and objectivity. And I use reason to weed out what is true and fit and good from what is unwholesome, false, and lacking in virtue. Number 3. It sounds kind of touchy-feely there, but I think you get the meaning. Number 3, the homunculus, the little man that lives behind my eyes. Remind myself that I have no soul. That when I die, everything. What's this guy doing ahead of me? He's kind of weaving a little bit. What if he's texting? The homunculus is my reminder that when I die, everything seems to go with me. I'm not saying that we don't have a soul, but there's simply that there is absolutely no good reason to think that that's the case. So it's better to assume that we don't until the evidence shows otherwise. So I remind myself that by keeping in mind that this little consciousness, this little sense of who I am, the sense of who I am that lives behind my ears, not in my big toe. If you cut off my foot, and that homunculus would remain intact behind my ears. But if you cut off my head, well, the show's over, so to speak. Next, move over. After the homunculus is the home of good and evil. Good and evil reside with the homunculus. This comes of my observation of spending a lot of time out in the wilderness and discovering that there doesn't seem to be any good or evil written large upon nature, other than the mandate of biology to survive. And if we want to have a good and evil in our life, some concept of that, it's up to us to, one, define them, to sustain that definition through a good showing that that is true, and then to negotiate that good and evil with our fellows. And there's a tremendous power in that. Because when good and evil are liberated from the hands of God, who there's no reason to give such power to a non-existent entity, at least the one that doesn't exist. When we wrest it from God's hands, it becomes negotiable, which is a frightening concept to many people, but it's a good thing. When good and evil are non-negotiable, we are basically going to come, the solution is to cut one another's heads off, or to imprison one another, or to subjugate each other, and force conversion. But if they're subject to reason and to logic and to argumentation, then we can negotiate our way towards truth, which is a much more tenable and virtuous position. Next, after the home of good and evil, our purpose. As I mentioned a moment ago, nature seems to offer one purpose to life, and that is to continue living, or demand one purpose of life, which is to continue living. It seems to be a mandate that all life forms are born with, to continue sustaining ourselves. And I don't think there's anything magic about that. It's in the nature of the machine. So my purpose then, my main purpose, probably my one purpose, is to stay alive, to have a child, and to bring that child to an adulthood where she can go on and carry on, and I can die and she'll be okay on her own. Outside of that, there is no objective purpose. So it's up to us to go ahead and make our own purpose. And I've decided my purpose is to be a virtuous man, whereas virtue is defined as the improvement of well-being for as many as possible. And I like to always list out a couple of examples, like helping to ensure that all children have access to good education, that everyone has access to health care, that we're all treated equally in terms of our basic rights and our liberties, and that we're afforded the basic equality when it comes between the sexes, when it comes to work, and also the races. Now, some of these are kind of patent answers, but they're good patent answers because they ring true. Next is the atomic principle. Everything in the universe is made of bits and pieces, flowing and changing and forever transforming. So too you and I. Very soon I will die, and my bits and pieces will fall away, deteriorate, be decomposed, or burned up, probably like bladder, and become something else. A lot of my energy just dissipated off to space if I'm cremated. It's good to remember that. Next is the principle of nature. Everything in the universe has some particular nature, so too you and I. Look at the sun starting to come through. It's good to recognize what that nature is and to live according to that. For example, I like to remind myself of what the nature of my workplace is and my co-workers and each of them, so that I can work with them and within that place in a more effective manner. Likewise, my own nature. My own nature is to walk alone in quiet places and to think, in solitary places and think. Next is the principle of maturity and the sub-principles of wisdom and fortitude. Maturity is that state that we arrive at when we have both experience and the will to live in accordance, live guided by that experience that we've gained along the way, that wisdom that we've collected along the way. That's a very powerful individual, one that has learned through trial and error and is willing to live better, to exercise restraint, to live better in accordance with their best practices they've discovered. Next is the social principle, where human beings are social animals. We need one another to survive. It really does make sense to live a socially virtuous life. Look at this fog, man. Wow. There's just some brake lights coming on. What if I want to be over the carpool lane? Next is the Feast of Offal. So try to do things that are social. That's you get a lot of bang for your buck in terms of virtue if you can do things for the many. Strange thing to say from a guy that wrote a book called Going Alone, but the Going Alone isn't quite what the title suggests. Next is the Feast of Offal. When we're living an unprincipled, undisciplined life, we give off a lot of waste and byproduct of our anger and frustration and upset. And that's the kind of we've spread that around. And guess what? It's a curious thing. Other people tend to consume that for some reason. They'll grab it up and swallow it down and get mad themselves. And then spout off their own offal, their own waste. And then the kid carries on. So the trick is to one, not give out that waste and byproduct, not give out your emotional offal to the world, and two, not to consume that of others. And that comes of, again, more disciplined living, to the exercise of temperance, which is the very next principle. You can use temperance, you can control your consumption of emotions. So temperance is that's the next one. Temperance is the controlled consumption of all things: food, drink, work, play, sex, overindulgence in creative activities, anything at all. Especially avoiding the overindulgence of our emotional reactions. So when anger arises in a sort of overindulgence in our emotions, so when anger or frustration or upset or even joy arise within us, to just sample away at those, and instead of flying off the handle with excitement and joy, although those are less odious, particularly with blowing our top and getting mad at everybody around us and making a scene. Instead, just kind of sample we'll ask ourselves, where's this emotion coming from? Kind of hold it in, see if you can do something better with that. If anything, just to hold it in and not spread that waste around for everybody, that feast of offal for everyone else. You used to think that by holding it in, you were bottling it up, that it would blow out later, but I don't think that's the case. You can find better uses for it, and it kind of almost just suppresses it away in a way, and there's a great power that comes, and a satisfaction that comes of that. Sure, there might be something to that bottle up thing, but my experience has been that that's not been the case. When I hold it in, I feel good about that fact, I move on, and especially because I ask myself where the emotion came from, and I don't just let it fester, but I deal with it. If I'm angry because a team member didn't follow through on an objective on our project, I don't just linger with the upset about that. I'll hold it in, but then I'll also then ask myself, how can I take action to work with this team member or to work around this team member if it's something that I can't actually manage away from my level of authority, that I can keep the project on track. So that's not just a matter of holding it in, it's a matter of doing something constructive with it. Next is number 12, which is agency of the great indifference. Agents, you and I are agents. Anything that's alive is an agent. The great indifference is the great universe of nothing, of non-life, not nothingness. It's everything that's left when you subtract out the life. It's the cold emptiness of nature that just doesn't seem to give a damn. There's no evidence that there's an omnipotent being, loving being, creator that seems to give a dang about us back there. The universe looks on with not dead eyes, but indifferent eyes. It doesn't even have eyes. It's just indifferent to all of it. I call it the great indifference. So if you want to have love and compassion and tenderness and care with one another, you need to do that with each other. Guys, that mix is kind of slowing down. Maybe you wonder what's going on. Next is 13 is the Path of the best seat in the house. That's right here, right now. I don't want to be doing anything else, or be anywhere else, or be anyone else, but to be satisfied with who I am right now. It's a delicate balance, because it doesn't mean I'm not striving towards better things, but I'm going to be content with who I am, where I am, and what I'm doing along the way. That's a very tricky balance, but it's a neat trick when you can do it. Next is the Path of Wildness. The Path of Wildness is a way to get unstuck in life, to recognize when a decision needs to be made, to allocate some time to think about the decision, to collect facts, and when that time comes, to either make the decision or give ourselves more time. And we can continue giving ourselves more time within reason. Eventually, we come to a point where we should probably make a decision. It's up to you to decide when that point is. And when that time comes, if you still don't have enough facts, but the time has come to make the decision, then pull the trigger and make the decision possibly informed of your gut, allowing your gut feeling to guide you, recognizing that that's not always the best way to proceed and you might make a mistake as a result, but realize also that there is virtue in moving forward, and it may be better to suffer a broken leg venturing up the wrong creek and to have some interesting stories to tell about that than to have languished and wasted all that time just afraid to move in a swamp for the fear of making a mistake. If you're willing to take the risk, then go for it. Adventure upon the path of wildness. Next is the risk of avoiding risk. We have surface level risks in life, the risk of not getting enough education, not finding someone to spend our life with, not making enough money, these types of things. These are the things that our mom and dad tell us to watch out for, worry about. And I want to suggest that we live long enough to live several lives. If you can attend to those risks I would recommend, if you're a first world person with a lifespan possibly into the 80s, attend to that stuff beginning with the 30s. In the 20s, you want to I would recommend attending to a deeper level risk, which is the risk of not becoming the type of person that you want, a creative, interesting individual, having lived some aspect of life that you dream about, living out your dreams. So give yourself your 20s, go as far as the 20s to give as far as an education, to have adventures, to make mistakes, and then later in your 30s, that's when you can settle down with a career, a family, and the like. There's plenty of time for both. But recognize if you wait too long on that last one, you may risk losing that too. So it's not foolproof. It's a rare person that can satisfy both levels of risk. Next, sin and damnation. There are 5 sins in my worldview. They're all the same thing. Falsity, credulity, faith, superstition, and dogma. They're all basically versions of believing things that are not true or cannot have no good reason to be believed. Watch out in particular for faith, because it's a sin that disguises itself as a virtue, and it's an easy one to give you what you want without the hard work of verifying that it's true. Next is the damnation part is that if you live your life believing false things, you're damned in the here and now to believe false things. There doesn't appear to be any afterlife to be damned in, after all. Next, complete oblivion. If there is no afterlife, and we don't survive our death, the homunculus dies with us, then complete oblivion is what waits after we're dead. That means that there's no final reunion after we're dead with the ones we love, no final reconciliation with those who we parted ways with on unhappy terms, and no final justice where justice was not served. There's no great lawgiver, no justice giver, no arbiter, no of right and wrong, no St. Peter at the gate sending some to heaven, some to hell. Then we better seek after justice in the here and now, rather than let it go. People will get away with their evil deeds, and good and evil do exist. Good is in my worldview, is the pursuit of virtue, and evil is where virtue is defined as the wholesale improvement of well-being, and evil is the direct, willful negation of virtue. I'm almost done now. Next is the great life adventure. That's, like I said before, a period of life to become the most interesting person at the cocktail party later in life, to have lots of adventures, to see the world, to make lots of friends, to make stories that will wow and fascinate, to risk death and possibly die, all those types of things. And you can have either one big one, like I said, in your 20s, or any time, really. It's never really too late. But what you do in your 20s will really form who you're going to be in the rest of your life. So I recommend a great life adventure early if you can. But you can also have it scattered throughout your life. I try to do it every 2 weeks. Next is the season of philosophy. At some point in your life, if you're living well, and you're living an honest, virtuous life, and you're giving yourself some great life adventures, and living a life in the pursuit of worthy ends, you're going to start to have something you want to say about that to the world. You may. Maybe you won't. Maybe just the acts themselves are enough. If you do, then I recommend write the words down, or do the actions, or speak the lessons, become a teacher, make art, whatever the case may be. However your muse expresses itself, do that when the words come, because those words, my experience has been that the words come really only once at that time. The words that I'm going to get today won't be here tomorrow. I won't be capable. I won't be the man. I won't be in the circumstance tomorrow to recreate those words. So the season of philosophy comes throughout life, but is that in the the voice of the muse, which is nothing supernatural or anything like that, it's just our creative spirit, a word I use to describe our creative energy. The voice of the muse is cultivated and catalyzed by the type of life we live. And when the muse speaks, heed it, write it down, do something to record that, save it for future generations, and pass it along through life. And I'm almost done. Last one is arena and utility. Life is an arena for the cultivation of a good, meaningful life, and the execution of our principles in the pursuit of our worthy objectives. And these principles are the utilities in our toolkit. Imagine them indeed like a toolkit. And that's basically it. And I am at work. I have to ask myself how the day is going to go. I missed yesterday because I was sick, so that means I'm behind. I have a meeting right away in the morning that I'm not prepared for, so I'll have to sit down at my desk, get my notes together, prepare my meeting agenda for the that meeting, and then get my act together. I have to play catch up today, so it's going to be a busy one. And then if I do a good job, if I stay on task and have a very productive day, then I can reward myself with a coffee on the way home. That's the place where I can also catch up on my email. Anyway, thanks for joining me. Have a wonderful day. And if you need to reach me, just write to me at dinnerbytheriver@gmail.com. Just like it sounds, dinner by the river. Take care, everybody. Have a good life.